Welcome to episode 34 of the Global Exclusive Podcast. I'm your host, Hazard. I'm joined this week by Baros, Dream, Muspel, and Shadowwalker. Cotton could not make it today. I'm not sure if it was just depression at her Yoshi polls or something else, but we mourn your loss, and we miss you, Cotton. Hope to see you next week. I will be saving a moment of silence for Cotton to do a separate rant during the episode about her Yoshi experience. So look forward to that. That'll be, it's, she laid an egg, that's for sure. All right, Dream, you've got our sponsor this week.
Well, this week we were going to be sponsored by Spirit True Double Hand, but unfortunately they only sent through 25% of the money, so that's cancelled.
but very on brand. Very on brand.
It was just, I love it during the maintenance when we realized that his STMR was 25% true double hand. Everyone was spamming Katie's STMR, just like all over bot stuff. It's just crazy.
I mean, Charlie did literally say, "Don't expect it to be a particularly high value," but of course, the community and their expectations are as they are.
Speaking of not particularly high value, this week we've got a brand new global exclusive NeoVisions unit. Our first one, it's Yoshikiri. He looks basically like store brand Aran, as I've told you guys many times. So we're going to talk about him. We're going to talk about the 5 to 7 star unit on this banner, which is Itachi. They're both shinobis, I believe, in the story. In the what is it? What's that Final Fantasy? It's not Final Fantasy. It's what's the story called? The FF thing.
Fundamental Forces.
Fundamental Forces, which is pretty funny, which Shadow is really a big fan of. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Intangier EXT fight. Some maybe notable things to farm this week. The new POG farmable event, which is really exciting. The break bar has received a big buff. And, we'll talk about maybe some future units. And, anything else we want to talk about at the end of the episode. I do want to mention we've continually received feedback on Reddit and our other mediums about, our podcast format and maybe some of the interruptions or off-topic stuff that happens. And I know it's going to be hard to please everybody because we do like to go off-topic and we do find that there's entertainment value not only for us but for the listeners as well in that. But this week we are going to try a little bit more of a structured format in the beginning. So for those of you who are interested in kind of the nitty gritty of units and fight mechanics and things, that you'll be able to pinpoint those things in the podcast and focus on those things. And hopefully we'll be able to have a better experience for everybody. So without further ado, we're going to start with Yoshi. And first we want to talk about Yoshi's kit, which has a lot of different things in it. So, Muspel, I wanted you to start off with kind of giving a brief overview of what Yoshi does and, in both his normal form and his Brave Shift form.
So when you look at global exclusive units, there's usually 2 flavors to them. There's the ones that are standard units, and then they try to push the numbers. Then there's the ones where Gumi tries something new, and those ones tend to be either pretty strong or absolutely terrible. Yoshi is kind of the second kind. They're trying something new, and they didn't really stick the landing. In his base form, he's a buffer, and he's not that great at it. He's got, some okay defensive options that don't necessarily have good durations, or they have cooldowns that are too long, or they're just hard to make good use of. And then he's got some offensive options that are okay, but not really worth it, compared to other units, or not necessarily worth a unit slot. And then and then in his Brave Shift form, he's a damage dealer who is pretty terrible. He does 80 billion-ish damage per turn, which is around half that of Rain. Now he is going to be tanky in that Brave Shift form because he's spirit-based, and he's still got the utility, but he doesn't have triple cast most of the time, so if he uses any of that utility, it really eats into his damage output, a lot.
What are some things that you've seen in the kit, Baros, that kind of you can see some utility with?
Well, I think there are a couple of things that are still worth mentioning. So Yoshi has a problem with his kit. Or let me start by saying Yoshi has a really good thing about his kit. So he is a physical type spirit damage dealer, right? He is a magic type. Magic damage. Yeah, God, I hate these mechanics. Can someone help me with the actual terminology? Dream, you should be good at this.
Physical attack type, magic damage scaling on spirit.
Thank you. Yeah, what Dream?
It's so simple, Barrows. Come on.
Yes, it is, but I am also really dumb, so it's difficult for me. Anyway, what that means is that, it's the perfect DV combo for magical stages, meaning that this dude gets all the benefits of physical killers, imbues and shit, while dealing magical damage to the boss on the magic fights. And he can do this in both his forms. As Muswell said, the Brave Shift form is the DPS form. The drawback here, though, is that he has AoE attacks. So you're not going to get his full potential on the weak bosses, right? Because he's going to do less damage with these. But on the stronger DV bosses, he's probably going to get all his 3 casts off. And it's about Bolting Strike, AoE Chain. I think this is going to be an excellent unit for DV, just because of that.
I did some damage calcs for this. With 2 casts, he does around 70 or 80 billion damage, which is honestly not that much higher than Ace. With 3 casts, he'll deal around 110, 115 billion, which is probably comparable to what Aerith does off element.
Yeah, but he has the benefits of, all the physical killers, freedom with imbues. I mean, so we can put it this way. Sure, it's an NV unit. It's not.
Sorry, for freedom with imbues. When I say that, I mean Yoshikiri using the correct element will deal probably similar damage as Aerith using the wrong element.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that does put things into perspective, of course.
Yeah.
Aerith being the stronger. Yeah.
With killers, he might still pull ahead, but since Aerith isn't even not necessarily a good mage in the first place, it's not looking good for Yoshi.
No, but I mean, just the fact that Ace and Rem are probably still many people's strongest DV magic units, right? And if he is already stronger than them at 2 casts, then this there's something to be said about it.
So he's got some some damage mitigation. He's got killers that he can apply to all allies in human and machine. He's got all stat buffs, stat break resistance, and auto revive, although that's kind of interesting in some. He does have water and ice imbues that he can apply to the party with some more powerful resistances in his base form and more powerful imperils in his Brave Shift form. But I know Musmo and Baros, you've kind of talked about some of the drawbacks. I want to ask Dream, what do you think his place in the meta is, or what kind of strategies do you see him excelling in or being really weak in, etc.?
Well, I'd say sort of his primary role is an offensive buffer, and, people expecting him to be the next Xuanwu with his spirit damage is sort of a bit silly because of that, but, he provides good stat buffs, he's got the physical mitigation, but the real things that you'll probably, see him most used for will be those spammable AoE, imbue plus 120% imperil plus a 15% element boost for the entire team. So that's Luna Freya and Rena's abilities, but on demand. And then he can combine that with stats. His 110% killer buffs are really very strong. I mean, we've kind of been spoiled by Mastermind Zon, but 110% for those is big. They work on both damage types. And, he's a lot more slot efficient when setting those things up. And then, obviously, there's also his Magnus in the Brave Shift with the 150% limit buff for the entire team. And, some limit damage like Tifa obviously have their own stronger buffs, and it's not really useful for them. But other ones like Cloud and Rain, you can squeeze out a bit of extra damage. Or like Laswell, it gives you a second use after he's used his own Grandis if you really want his Brave Shift to do limit damage. And, pretty much every NV has high mods on their limit burst, so it can definitely push out some extra damage. So I think mainly he'll see use in, a lot of those OTK and very fast clears, and just as a buffer in Dark Visions rather than maybe for his own damage, or he can buff up and then contribute good damage the next turn.
The awkward thing about Yoshi is that his whole kit just doesn't scream envy to me, at least. Like, if you have an envy, if you have a brand new GLEX envy unit, you'd expect it to do more than a certain niche in Dark Visions. Even his niche that he does, the offensive support thing, isn't a really necessary thing in most cases because, there's other sources of this. Like, he is a Luna Freya / Rena Light, in the sense that not light. He's like a better version because he has 2 elements. It's on demand, and it has the increased, physical / magic damage, typing increases, damage increases. But in a sense, it kind of feels like they took a 7-star unit and then slapped the word NV on it and then called it a day. Sometimes, because the SPR scaling kit feels half-assed. His offensive buffing kind of his buff or support kit kind of feels half-assed. But and onto the killers, the 110% killers are really nice. But at the same time, Machinas and humans are probably easy to come by anyways. So it's more like a good luxury item rather than, oh shit, this is really nice, I better put him in my slot type deal, I think.
I want to talk a little bit more about his defensive buffing, because there is some stuff in there that's at least worth talking about. He's got 50% physical mitigation, which is spammable. The problem is that it only lasts for 1 turn, and he doesn't have T-cast a lot of the time. So he has to use it every single turn, which is eating up a third to a half of his actions, depending on whether or not he has T-cast that turn. And then he also has 85% all element resist on his LB, but his LB costs 38 crystals. I think a lot of the time you're not going to be able to use that until turn 3 at the earliest, maybe even turn 4. And I find that when I'm using elemental resist buffs, I usually need them on turn 2 or even turn 1. And if he had something that was, even if it was something weaker on those early turns, it would be fine. But he only has resist to 2 elements that are on demand. Aside from that, for anything else, it's only on his LB.
His base form LB.
Yes, his base form LB. And because the physical mitigation only lasts 1 turn, if he uses that LB, he loses the 50% mitigation that turn.
Yeah, and to build up on that, one problem that I have with the unit additionally is that, so obviously offensive buffer with also, I mean, strong buffs overall, so it's, but I really see nothing beyond that isn't really built for DV, because putting Yoshi in a defensive buffer slot is never going to work, obviously. And we even have offensive buffers that are probably going to do the job better because they also bring the bulk that you're going to need. Unless, I think it was Shadow that said, or Dream, unless you're really doing the OTK strat, where that might help. Otherwise, to me, I really, really see a unit designed for DV, and I think this unit is going to be good for DV.
I agree. I mean, I think it was Dream who said it, that for shorter fights, he's going to perform a little bit better. I think, the 90% reductions for physical and magic damage that he can do in a pinch are pretty nice. I do think, his limit burst is pretty nice. It's like 85% all element resist is really nice for 5 turns. Cures all break, stop, charm. Gives you 250% all stats and does some magic damage, which is pretty good. But I agree. I think the longevity here of this unit, I mean, buffers are usually one of the longest lasting units in the meta that we've had. Buffers, tanks, healers even. But I think Yoshikiri has some limitations. As Barros just mentioned to me, the mitigation, the 90% mitigation only applies to one person, so it's not team wide. So it's really essentially good on your tank, and that's about it. Or maybe some unit you really expect to die that turn.
He's in response to people saying that he's designed for Dark Visions. I think that's where he'll see the most use. I don't know that I would say that he's designed for it, because the problem is that he has AoE chaining moves, which are not great for DV, and his buffs aren't the kind of or for the most part not the kind of thing that are better than what Zon brings. That's not to say he's useless in DV, but it feels like his kit was not designed around DV. It just ends up being usable in there, but he's not built for it. I also want to point out that his 90% mitigations cost his entire LB gauge, so those can also be very difficult to use.
Oof.
I mean, overall, I'm just kind of feeling like people are sort of expecting a bit much from like a unit right at the start of the Envy era, and they're not immediately going to massively jump up non-damage rolls because, as it said, they sort of are one of the slowest rolls to power creep, and when they jump up a lot, it's hard to then kind of balance around that. So being like a small step up from 7-star at this point in time really makes sense to me.
I mean, I wouldn't mind them being a small step up if it weren't for the fact that other roles were a massive step up. Like, why is this where they suddenly became cautious?
I mean, Aerith's not like a massive step up in healing. That was a thing that people made very clear.
Yeah, but that's arguably not her main role.
Well, I can chain on this by saying that, also the massive step-ups is usually what we see in DPS, though. Like tanks, yes, once with Cecil, and once more if we look at the future of JP, but in general, DPS is the big step up, and all other roles are small step ups. So I think that we were just blinded by the fact that NV are huge step ups when it came to DPS, which Aerith also was in DPS. And then we looked at this unit, and he isn't, but he is kind of probably a proper step in the buff category, the offensive buffer category. But that was not what I wanted to say. I wanted to say, like, when the fuck are we going to talk about his beautiful, swole-ass, bulging muscles? Like, we need to have a section on that.
I thought we were leaving that for Cotton's rant.
Oh, yeah, actually, Cotton, I really hope your rant includes, you know what I mean?
There's regarding like his quote unquote small step, I guess to counter that argument, technically we should have already gotten Poppy and some of the other JP supports by this point. And thinking about them, they're already better than Yoshikiri is, at least if you're arguing for a spot in your team. So I think what the crowd's expectations were that they were at least similar to Poppy, or maybe slightly worse. Or maybe this is what you call slightly worse. But I just think that his kit doesn't scream upgrade enough to say go to a banner that doesn't have any sort of safety net and requires POG farming, requires like 2 copies or at least some shards to work. Like my idea is this: 7 stars needed less effort to get it going. Envies require some level of farming or work to get it going, in my opinion. Or at least that's how I feel. So Yoshikiri doesn't feel like doesn't feel like that sort of upgrade is worth it. Last one is the best thing about Yoshikiri is his naming scheme. Whoever decided to name his moves, my goodness, they really know their things. So good job. I like what they named his moves.
So to jump off what you were saying, Shadow, I think that's kind of the quote unquote disappointment in the community right now is not so much that he's bad, because he's definitely not bad, and he's definitely, he has some uses, but I don't see any significant step up. Like, I can't say he's better than any of the current buffers, later buffers that we've had.
Surprising you don't see a step up. Oh.
Well, the thing is, I mean, as Shadow mentioned, there's a level of investment that you have to make in NV units that you don't have to make for 7 stars. And so there needs to be some sort of payoff there. And I just don't see it with Yoshikiri. Other than the flair and the flavor, which is why obviously Cotton tried to pull for him unsuccessfully. But I just don't see there's a whole lot of payoff here and especially I think the global exclusive units that we've had in the past have always come with some sort of fanfare or excitement or hype in the community. And there was some, with this guy too. And I think it was just kind of deflated a little bit once the kit actually came out.
Dream, I think it was saying, or Dreamer Barrows was saying that, like, it's normal for there to not be that much of a step up in terms of power. But when you look at the other roles, like with the units they got in JP, every single non-damage healer NV unit, aside from the ones that are arguably another main role, they're all pretty big steps up. They're a pretty big step forward in terms of power compared to 7-star units. Like even NV Silka, who we don't necessarily hear about a whole lot, she's an incredibly powerful healer. Like, if I'm looking at her kit, she would probably be the best healer in the game right now in GL. Aside from, I guess Rena is competitive in some ways, but like she has a spammable 5k barrier. She has all the immunity. She has AoE re-raise, and if you can get her to work on your team, she seems top tier easily.
I didn't realize she was released this week too.
I mean, she wasn't, but I'm saying look at all these roles that have gotten NV units, and they are the next step in power creep by a considerable margin, and Yoshi just isn't.
Yeah, I think the problem is, we talked about when NVs first came out and we got Tifa as like our major bait. She was such a step up from, in power creep and in terms of survivability and everything. And I don't know, a lot of the NVs since then have just been kind of whatever. And I don't mind that if we're kind of leveling out the power creep a little bit. But I just think if you're going to put an NV unit out, they have to be objectively better than a 7-star, in my opinion. It doesn't have to be a ton, but you got to have something. And I just don't think Yoshikiri really does it. Anyways, so let's talk about Itachi. So she is the 7-star banner unit, and she kind of has like a support chainer. She's kind of an offensive debuffer, right? In contrast to Yoshikiri's offensive buffer. So I wanted to, to have a Dream and Barros talk about her kit a little bit.
So basically, Itachi is like worse Riku, because she's got breaks, which are sort of, she's got an 80% cooldown to start, or 85 for one turn once in the battle. So 80%, and then once that drops, you're down to 75. So she can't maintain 80 like Riku. And then the main reason why I compared her to Riku is because she also has a 1-stack AoE Mirage that she can multicast with her breaks. But then other than that, it's just kind of chaining for damage that won't really matter, and then like Ice Imbue for herself and Imperil, but she can't maintain full uptime on 120 by the looks of it. Oh no, she can alternate her 2 cooldowns for full uptime on 120. But yeah, just like her damage is not going to be that significant, and then yeah, you're basically getting Bolting Strike Chains, Ice Imperil, and 1-stack Mirage for your troubles.
Yeah, don't forget.
So when Varn and stuff exist.
Yeah, don't forget the 85% full break Honor Magnus, or wait, Grandis. No, this is still a Magnus, right?
It's a Magnus.
Yeah,
Hang on.
This is still a Magnus.
I forget how hides work, because that Magnus also makes her hide for a turn, and the break only lasts 1 turn. Does that mean that she won't be able to do anything on the following turn?
No, she should be able to act the next turn. She should come back at the start, I think. But yeah, it's 1 turn once in the fight, so
yes.
I would rather have full uptime on 80% than 75 to 85.
Yeah, but you know what my mind is?
85.
I mean, you know what I'm thinking about? I'm thinking about DV. I'm thinking about DV and 85% breaks. You just need them for
That's
1 turn.
fair.
So that's a good
again,
thing. Like, you shouldn't be sad if you accidentally pulled Itachi while going
Yeah, that's
for
fair.
That is true, but again, most of her skills are AoE, which not a good match for DV.
Yeah, but you're
It's
literally
sort of like,
using her to break in DV. That's what I'm trying to say. Like,
Sure,
you're gonna
but
bring her
there
and
are
break.
unless you
for that.
needed Ice Imperil, you would just use Varn because he has his limit burst fully charged, and that's also 85%.
Yeah, but if you have on, which we do. I mean, we all do. We all pulled for on, but still.
Yeah. And you can UOC him next month.
Yeah, not all of us. I was looking for him in the UOC pool actually today. Did not find him.
Well, you should pull for Itachi then, because then you're gonna have a 85% break DV unit.
I did actually end up with one. And you should not be sad with Itachi because her STMR is actually really, really solid. Although it is a little bit misleading, or it was misleading. It is now fixed in the wiki. But her STMR is 80% unconditional attack, 50% true dual wield attack, equipment attack, and it also decreases her MP usage for some of her movesets by 30%. Some people thought it was 30% across the board for any unit's moves, but it's just hers. Which is pretty good.
I wonder if that affects other moves too. Like not moves on all units, but it says ninjutsu. So does that affect Yoshi's skills?
That I don't know.
I mean,
Does it
not very
affect
relevant,
Uraisha's
but
skills?
Why would it affect Uraisha's skills?
I'm I'm afraid to ask. I don't know how this could be disturbing, but I feel like it is.
No. I mean, Jiraiya is ninja, right?
What?
I think he means Jiraiya.
Oh, sorry, Jiraiya. Yeah, Jiraiya. Yes, not Granny, not Granny.
It's like, did I miss the part where that old lady's in it?
Well, no, but yeah, Jiraiya. I mean, obviously, this might make Jiraiya OP. 30% reduced magic or MP use on ninjutsu. Come on.
We'll have to
That's
ask
all he was
Pop.
missing.
I think she has the STMR.
Oh, I bet
But-
she does.
By this point, she should.
So, I had something really important to say about her kit. So, first time I saw her sprite in the game, I thought she had a scorpion tail coming out of her butt. Now that I'm actually looking at her sprite...
She doesn't.
No, exactly. See, because like it's actually her arm that kind of looks like the scorpion shit is coming out of her asshole, but it's not. Because if you zoom in on the sprite, you're gonna see that it kind of comes out like...
It's from like her upper back.
Yeah, it's from her upper back. And so yeah, it's not a butt scorpion tail. I'm sorry if I ruined the game for everyone who pulled for Itachi because of the butt scorpion thing, but yeah, it's not.
Yes, there's a wide selection of people who did it just for that reason.
I think
They
you'd be
really
surprised.
They really like the the butthole Doc Ock version.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys think, Itachi? I know Drain kind of mentioned it in the beginning. Basically, like a lesser Riku. Does anyone else have an opinion other than that? I mean, is she better than Riku? On par with Riku?
All right.
No.
Next
So-
topic.
Yeah, so she's STMR bait, really, which is fine.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
If you want to make your Jiraiya OP, then yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I can hear your.
Yeah.
Well, you want a rant? Here's a rant. For the love of the gacha gods, at the very least, put some sort of guarantee on our banners. Like, sure, all the additional stuff like the unit fragments or the 100% SMR Mughal, those are nice, but especially with the unit fragments, what's the point of having a lot of them if you can't even get a single copy of the guaranteed unit on banner? And I guess that's just my main gripe with the whole NV system. Yeah, we get all these new toys to play around with, but we get absolutely no... back in the era of the zero guarantee hell again. So it's like, especially if you really want a single unit, it's going to be very hard to get it if your luck particularly sucks on a single day. And I have experienced that myself. I've read or talked to other people who have gone through the same thing. And it can be very disheartening. So why will Iskami bring back the guarantees?
So now let's talk about the new trial that came out, the Intangier EXT. I haven't even looked at this thing yet. I don't know if you guys have done it.
He's back again.
Yeah, here we are again. So, Shadow, do you want to talk about the fight mechanics or kind of what this fight's about, how it differs from the previous versions?
It's not different at all.
Woo!
It's
That's a good thing.
Hey, it has a break bar.
Oh yes, okay. So I was gonna talk about that, but Scorn of the Intanger is
Jir.
yeah, whatever, King Beamy is basically the same as the old one, except bigger stats, and there's a break bar.
That's
That's really
that's
it.
not really true.
What else is different?
Isn't
His
it?
AoE's pierce cover now. Most of them.
Okay,
Oh.
well,
Fun.
yes, wow, very cool mechanics. It's nothing really. It's if you have a Tifa, you can OTK it, which I think 90% of the community did. Just saying.
Yeah, 90% of the community are lazy assholes, okay?
Wow.
I've dealt with Intanger's mechanics enough in the past, and frankly, I don't like them, so I don't feel bad about one-punching this one.
I haven't
Well,
done
you
it
don't-
Is this
yet.
like a
I'm planning to do it the normal way and not just burst it, but we'll see how that goes.
must spell the masochist?
And I mean, it's not really a huge deal. So you need to keep track of if he's either drifting off or dozing off, because that's going to tell you what you need to wake him up with. And then you wake him up, you dispel his ass, and you do damage, and then you let him go back to sleep. Also, you need to make sure your team survives when he wakes up, of course.
Not the
Well,
whole.
that's it.
You don't dispel the whole body.
The whole body?
Well, you said you only dispel one part of his body, a specific part.
No.
Is this a penis joke?
No, you said you dispel his ass.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh.
I mean, yes, you dispel his ass. And even better if you actually have perfect dispel, because then it helps you out in not having to re-break, but otherwise you're going to, of course, have to dispel and re-break as you wake him up. Which can also be a bit problematic because there are requirements on how you wake him. Shadow, do you know, like, is it enough to just wake him with one ability and then you can do another ability to break on that same turn? Because,
What
like,
do you
if you
mean?
use the wrong type, like, you're gonna incur his
So if
wrath.
you're not supposed to use it, like for example, let's just say you're not supposed to use his LB, but you use the LB to break, type deal.
No, yeah, exactly. Like, so let's say he dozed off, meaning you have to use a magic or esper skill, right? Or, sorry,
Yes.
magic or esper summon. So you wake him with magic. Let's say you do Dispelga, right?
Yeah.
Can you then break with Vaughn's LB, or is that going to enrage him?
If you
Uh,
use the, go ahead.
If you use a spell or an esper first, the first set of retaliation have priority. If hit with both spells and abilities, Integra will retaliate with the ability first.
Well,
So
basically, if you use the wrong type, even if you hit him with the correct one, he will hit you with the nasty counters. So
yes, don't ever hit him with anything
Basically,
wrong.
it checks all actions per turn, not just the
Yeah, that
first
was what I was
Exactly.
going for. That was what I
so
was going for.
it's
Yeah.
not checking
Yeah.
whether you did the right thing; it's checking whether you did the wrong thing. So even if you do the right thing, if you also do the wrong thing, you're screwed.
Yeah. So if you need to reapply a
And
break on a dozing off turn, you're fucked.
Well, not just reapply. I mean, if you want to dispel him and you don't have a perfect dispel, then yeah, what up, dude?
Dream.
And in regards to the enrage, I was just gonna say how dumb it is that he can do a preemptive and that can trigger counterattacks, which can then enrage him before you even take a turn.
Good.
Well, I mean, his enrage won't trigger till after your first turn, but you just have no chance of like preventing it.
Don't use a tank. Duh.
To be fair, normal attacks trigger the weak counter, but yeah.
Well, it depends on what sleep it is, but
No,
I know
he always
that
uses drifting off
first
on
turn, like-
the preemptive, which is the one where normal attacks are safe. So unless
I
you have a
just-
unit that counters with a spell, which I think is Ring of the Lucii the only thing that
I
would
mean
do
that- yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's fine if you've got like a full defensive setup and have dispelled and broken him turn one.
Yeah.
But like, if you are, say, doing an OTK and bring Zon, and then Zon counters the preemptive with Mean Mug, you're fucked.
I mean, I kind of feel like if you're doing an OTK, you're ready to do multiple attempts, or you're
Well,
accepting
yeah.
that you don't have a good backup plan.
You just have to find the right friends and take like an hour and a half to do so. Not speaking from experience or anything.
Just use Renora.
Yeah, Renora is going to be great for this trial, 100%. Or is great for this trial. But wait, I still need to go back to the whole Dispel thing. So the reason why I'm saying Dispel is because he gives himself big buffs. Like big buffs that you want to Dispel as you wake him up. But like, if you're waking him up with magic, again, I keep like, okay, how the fuck am I going to do this, right?
Barris, the whole point is when he first goes to sleep, you want to not wake him up, and then until he goes into deep sleep, and then on the turn after he wakes up anyway. So it's just not waking him up the first turn he goes to sleep.
Yeah, but
at least
I
from
think
what I remember.
I think Barrows means most breaks, or at least a lot of the good breakers, deal damage.
Yeah.
So if you dispel the boss, then you have to break him without dealing damage, and that means like you can't use Vaughn for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. His enrage mechanics are generally like really quite annoying to play around just because so many things that you need to do to him, many sources of them will also trigger an enrage that will just massacre you.
So I know you guys mentioned Tifa as an OTKO. Muspa, you said you were going to go the long way. Like, what's a good team comp for this, or what kind of units should you be looking for to handle these mechanics?
So I've not tried it yet, but looking at the fight, I think I would probably take a magic cover tank, somebody with AoE Mirage, probably somebody with magic mitigation. You're going to need ailment immunity, and then somebody that can break without dealing damage.
Although people are doing it with Vaughn, so...
Yeah, I'm sure there's ways to do that. It probably makes things harder. I'm trying to think what breakers don't deal damage. Lid probably, or healing avatar Lid. She doesn't deal damage with her breaks, right?
Maybe.
Let me check.
I'm not sure. I feel like she might.
Does Vaughn have any
She had a
non-DPS
bunch
ones?
of like support chainings.
Vaughn does not. Okay, so Lid's 75% breaks do not deal damage. Her 80% ones do. So she would be a valid option.
One thing
go
you
ahead.
could wait for is Sarga Garbage. I mean, not Sarga, but Gabronth. Because Gabronth has a spammable 45% physical min.
Are you suggesting people
Why don't you just use...
wait for Gabranth in global?
Wait, hold on. Why don't you just use Yoshikiri in his spammable 50% physical mit?
I mean, Yoshikiri is just going to be
Checkmate
there just for
beast.
that. Then
Now we found the fight he's designed for.
I'm not sure that there would be much use to that. It's not like the physical AoE doesn't look that bad. He uses it once like every 4 turns, and he's breakable, and he only has 2,500 attack and no passives. How much damage does that even do?
Here comes Muspel math.
Muspel pulls out calculator.
This is my
But
favorite part of.
I mean, I think a really good strat here is also to bring multiple people that can perfect dispel. So if you're using Vaughn, you already have one source of perfect dispel. And honestly, if you get a bit lucky with Vaughn, you could even get 2 segments that just allow you to break with him anyway. And if you're a bit unlucky, you get only 1 and you can perfect dispel that. And this fight won't last longer if you have Envy DPS anyway. Like, you're not gonna go through more than a couple, 3 sleep cycles anyway. So I think it can work.
sleep cycles.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, assuming that you use a 75% break, his physical AoE will hit for like 2k damage. It's nothing.
Nothing.
Like
nothing.
you could run Renora with physical mid and a big general mid buff and not break him, and would still be survivable. Like, it would hit for like 17k damage, but even with no break, it's not that bad. He has no stat passives.
Yeah, it's really his. What's that called? What's that preamp called? Fuck.
That's not the name.
His buff?
Meteor?
Yes, thank you.
Wow.
Oh,
Oh, wow. Oh, man.
I'm tired, man. I'm tired, Robbie.
Yes, speaking of sleep cycles, Shadow's in the middle of one.
Yeah, it's just on the threshold he uses that big magic AoE, which is gonna hurt more. But you can probably just re-raise through that, right?
It's a boring fight.
Maybe.
I'm not sure if it hits more than once.
The reward's okay.
Boring.
Uh,
I think it's a bit unfair to call it boring. This at least kind of doesn't have bullshit mechanics that really wipe you, and it kind of still forces you to react and change your strategy a bit because you need to react to what type he dozed off to. So it's just like, I'm not gonna say boring. It's not the most exciting, but it's definitely more exciting than like Curl or any of the
Curl.
latest. Yeah, I don't know.
It would probably be more exciting if we hadn't seen it several times before, and it's just this with higher stats.
Well, don't worry, we're gonna see more of it.
Mostly.
Well, as we've seen,
Unfortunately.
Gumi hasn't really come up with any new ideas in a while. Like, our new GLEX unit is literally just Oran in a new outfit. I will say, I think the best part of this fight is the reward, which is the Enhancer Plus. And the next version will get Enhancer Plus, obviously. And we'll just keep going until we get SS++, 99 out of 100 on Altema, or whatever. But it's got 172 attack, 127 magic. It's got 10% HP and 30% magic. I think this might be a good candidate for the upcoming new Elena, who is true dual wield hybrid. So that's something maybe to keep an eye out for. Maybe incentive to get that done when she comes out, which should be, soon TM. But yeah, this fight's kind of boring. I haven't done it yet, but if it's like the Intangiers of before, I think I've said Intangier 5 different ways now. But if it's anything like the other ones, it's just going to be a snooze fest for anyone with Tifa. But we'll see. I'm excited to try it when I got some time.
I just did some calcs for the threshold attack, and it looks like, you're going to have to re-raise through it, because it does... If you have 1,000 spirit and 50% general mid and 50% magic mid, it hits for like 50k.
What the shit?
Yeah, you can use
Wait.
a 75% magic mid buff, and your units are still going to take like 25k damage, which is technically survivable, but holy shit, you don't want to do that.
Wait. So you're saying that the like one of the mechanics on this trial is you better have re-raise?
Yeah, but I mean,
Oh.
I don't necessarily mind that.
What threshold is this for?
80%, 50%, and 20%.
Okay,
So
because I'm
all
going to
of
say,
them.
on the wiki, there's a preemptive damage spirit calculator. It tells you how much spirits you need and how much damage it'll do. So you guys can use that if you are interested in that. But I will warn all of our listeners, this is Muspel math. So just, I'm not 100% sure if you actually do need re-raise. And Sinzar is probably like turning over in his proverbial grave at this moment listening to this, if he's still listening to the podcast, which RIP Sinzar, please come back to
Sinzar
us.
is doing like a React video right now. Muspel is an idiot. That's what it's like.
So the preemptive has a 0.88x modifier. The threshold ability has a 15x modifier, so it will hit it about 15 times as hard. Modified by whatever mitigations you have that you didn't have for the preemptive.
That sounds nice.
Hey, so you know what that means?
Just as sort of...
That means that Serena, with her Perfect Dispel and spammable AoE re-raise, and the dope-ass kit in general, is going to be MVP for this fight. I'm going to do it with Serena.
You're going to do what with Serena? Oh, wait, no, don't answer the question. Do not answer.
Hazard, why do you keep doing this?
I was caught off guard, and I really didn't hear what he said, and the way I phrased it, unfortunately, was just unfortunate. So I apologize to all of our listeners. Do not answer that question, Baros. What were you doing specifically with Serena on this fight in the game?
No.
No. So listen, I want to ignore your question entirely, Hazard, and just take this opportunity to say, hey, Gumi, if you're listening, when the fuck are you gonna buff Serena?
Soon. Didn't you see their schedule?
Yeah, it's
on the schedule.
Yeah, it's in the future. So it's like...
At some
but it will
point
happen
between now and the heat death of the universe.
Oh, God. Let's talk about the heat death of the universe instead. That's a very interesting topic, actually.
Well, before we get to that, let's talk about the new Pog fight, because the break bar on this Pog fight is insane. It takes 2 turns with 2 double hand or like dual wielding barrage units to break with the correct weapons. And we've checked with Gumi, and this is intended. So it is supposed to be this way.
You just need to use your 2 Envy Axe Stars and a barrage unit. You can break it in 1 turn. Come on, Hazard.
But on the other hand, it's very much killable without breaking the break bar, so you can kind of just ignore it.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say.
I have to repeat, though, why are you making farmable content have a break bar?
It is dumb, though.
Why? Is this? I mean, we have to do this. We have to farm this every week for a new unit every week, and often multiple units if there's NVAs. I really just think you guys should make this easier.
This approach might actually be better, because if you have a break bar where you can ignore it and burst on the first turn, that's great for veterans that don't want to sit through a barrage animation. But if it also has a break bar that you can use to make it a lot squishier, that's good for the casual players or new players that don't have the units to burst it. Because then they can wear down the break bar and then deal good damage. So they can take a slow route. So this might be a good compromise. Maybe. I'm not sure.
That's actually a very good point, Muspel.
I don't know if this boss just fucks you up on turn 2 like some of the other ones have.
Counterpoint, you could just make it easy for everybody because it's farmable content.
Oh, well, I'm sure we'll be getting very familiar with it regardless, because apparently this is going to be the one for every global exclusive from now on.
Yeah, it's exciting.
At least until, JP realizes that the system sucks and changes it.
So no, listeners, save your team, okay? Because you're going to be using it. And we're already going to be using it next week, I guess, because Elena is next week. Pantless Elena.
And, because it lasts 2 weeks.
You think she's coming out next week?
She is confirmed to be coming out
next week.
next
That's what Discord
week.
told me. I haven't read news, but...
Speaking of, this week there's a couple new things. Like every week and every event we get some new equipment. And there used to be a really awesome Reddit post, which is, should I farm that? But I wanted to see if you guys have seen any of the new gear or new things that you could craft that you think are worthwhile. And if not, why not?
Hazard, I think you're worthwhile.
You think I'm worth farming?
Let me just quickly check the event page to see what the heck the event gear actually is.
There was a sword this week that you could get the stuff from last week.
I was looking.
Oh yeah, the upgrades.
I was looking at this event gear. It all looks reasonably good. Some of it is like genuinely good. Like I might actually use it even though I have STMRs. Some of it is only good for new players. But like there's a materia in here that gives 25% killers against demons, fairies, stones, and undead, and also gives 20% attack and magic. And that's not amazing, but some of those races are hard to get killers for.
Yeah, and that's the exploration one, right?
Yeah, there's also a materia that gives 50% attack with the katana and 20% ice resist. Could be useful if you're gearing for resist. There was a sword with some HP. There was...
oh, that's right.
There's a whip with earth resist, which could be relevant somewhere. I don't know.
So those are the things I think are more interesting. The stuff that you have like niche uses, but the stuff I think is really boring. It's like, here's a sword with 110 attack and nothing else. Like, why do we have that?
I think we're getting a bit less of that now. It seems like with the enhance equipment feature and stuff, a lot of the event gear is actually like quite a bit more usable than it used to
Yeah,
be.
we've got a few.
And
Sorry.
similarly unusable. That was all like kind of last week's stuff, though it's only upgradable now with the exploration. But also from this week's actual event, there's Yoshikiri's robe, and that is quite a nice like just defensive support robe because it's got 35 both defensive stats, 20% HP and 20% spirit. So that's quite a lot of nice defensive stats.
Can I do a hot take? So, one thing
Do
that
you do
I
anything
think,
else?
well, I am a hot take, you know. Okay, so one thing that I really think STMRs and this event gear creep has ruined is this cool feeling we had back in the day. So I'm sorry, like all the new listeners that haven't played this game from the start. This includes you, Hazard. You know
What?
that feeling of when you're looking through your friends list and you see like these people rocking the Muramasa or like those rare lightnings that also had Mustario's TMR? Like, what I'm trying to say is, at that point in the game, there were just a couple of really powerful weapons, and everyone knew about them, and they were very desirable. And that would still hold true if also, you know, like there's just so many of them. There are so many STMRs. It's just no longer fun. I don't know. Is it just me?
No, I agree. I think that comes with
Kind
with
of.
power creep. It comes with aging of the game. Like I remember Excalibur, which was Cecil, the original Cecil's TMR was a must-have. I actually spent a 100% trust Moogle on it that we got from the end of the season 1 or whatever, which still was a bad idea at the time. So don't think that was ever a good idea. But I used it because I wanted it to put on Agrius because finding a second chainer was harder for me in some of the Chamber of Arms fights and stuff. I don't regret it, but yeah, like I agree, Baros. There's been, you know, this power creep. The weapons that used to be really cool are kind
I
of
mean,
a
it's
dime
the
a dozen
MMO
now.
effect. I mean, it's the MMO effect, right? It's like
Sure.
kind of when you're inspecting someone in an MMO, when you see them, oh my god, they have Thunderon or whatever, you know, or no, sorry, Windseeker. I forget. WoW was a long time ago.
Thunder Fury, Blessed Blade.
Thunder
of the
Fury.
Windseeker.
Thank you.
Wait, did someone say Thunder Fury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker?
I thought you
Yes.
said you weren't a gamer, Hazard.
WoW
Anyway.
is the only other game I basically have played in the last 15 years.
Oh, but that's nice. And I mean that's a cool effect, right? It's inspecting and seeing that, oh my god, they have this weapon, but now it's like, oh my god, they have one of the 30 great swords that have above 170 attack. It's like, you know, that effect is kind of gone. So
I feel like we had this discussion when we started the podcast, which was not very long ago, right? It was January or February of this year, where we had opined that we wanted more elemental weapons, STMR quality elemental weapons. That kind of fell off because kits of units have changed significantly to where either they give themselves give themselves a element and an imperil, or there's like some, you know, external one that's a lot easier to have. But now we've kind of just gone through the now we've got all that stuff, but it's kind of not as worthwhile as we thought it was going to be.
I think it's mostly just been the rise of multicast. All these units can imbue more easily without as much of a DPS loss.
I mean, that'd still be nice in some situations, like, say, an STMR ice weapon for NVA Laswell's base form. But what I was going to say is that sort of, that effect of, like, seeing, like, really well that friends still kind of exists. It's a bit more subtle, but you see stuff with, say, like, Stern's STMR and other limited unit STMRs. But I think, overall, the benefit from having that actual variety and obtainability of high-end gear is much more valuable than that sort of cool factor, because I think, as we've seen from like the latest JP trial, there is a very limited set of top units that you need to like be able to complete it in a reasonable amount of time. So basically it's a way of saying where that sort of narrow top end is being very restrictive is not very healthy a lot of the time.
Yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, but I'm still missing that feeling of these like rare, hard to obtain things because like there are so many STMRs. I guess that's the problem. Like there are so many STMRs. There's always like an alternative. There are so many options that there's no more blessed blade of the Windseeker.
I want to say I missed this before. From the event, there's a robe with 20% HP on it, which is that's like STMR shit.
Thanks for listening to me.
Sorry, what? Oh, yeah, I guess not.
I mentioned that already.
I was reading the wiki page.
Okay, but
That's
Okay,
what,
but
that
have you
was when
heard-
Muspel was calculating damage on Intangier. He was like making his spreadsheet.
all right, but have you guys heard about this robe that you get with 20% HP on it?
Wait, hold on. Is there a 20%
It
HP
also
roll?
has 20%
That's like
spirit.
STMR material. Tell me more, Hazard.
Oh, I will. I'm gonna let my friend Dream tell you about it. 10 minutes ago.
Well, from this week's event, there is a robe with good defensive stats and 20% HP and spirit, so that's really
Whoa,
good.
that's pretty rad.
All right. Well, speaking though of rare things to have on armor, I still don't have Wilhelm's STMR, and there is such a dearth of other good armors. I've got 3 of them. I've considered, getting his STMR, just EOC in another Prism for a long, long time. I don't know if it's worth it or not.
I did that a
Yeah.
few months ago, and I feel
But
like
that's
it was
cool, though.
worth.
I think Wilhelm's STMR is a great example because that's a really old STMR and still the fucking best armor in the game. That's what I'd like to see.
Hazard, you might, depending on how you feel, you might want to consider holding out for Neovision Gabrant because his STMR is similar to Wilhelm's in some ways. It's got higher defense and HP, but less spirit.
All right, but
And that requires...
yeah,
Exactly.
number one, it requires them actually releasing NV Gabranth, which put your bets down now. Do you actually think that's going to happen? Like, is he actually coming, or are we going to get NV Zargabath?
Oof, I would love to get Envy Zargabath. Hazard, don't play with my
I don't know
feelings.
if he's coming. It's
Actually-
if he does or not, it's going to finally prove or disprove my theory that there's some kind of really weird rights dispute going on where one of the writers claimed ownership over Gabranth and they don't have rights to him in North America. That's
I mean, actually, I can offer a bit of a tidbit about this. Apparently, his vision card was in the data
Oh,
this week.
nice. And
So-
Muspel, you never really know when he's coming. It's always like a surprise all up in your face.
nope. I see where you're going with this, and I'm stopping.
No,
it now.
well, I mean, you see if you have your eyes open, but that's actually a bad thing to do, so you should probably close your eyes.
Hazard, Dad.
Don't make me come back there.
Oh, come back where?
Well, we almost made it through the whole episode. No, we didn't. What am I talking about? Every time Barros talks, it happens. So, but do you guys, speaking of the future, besides Gabranth, is there anyone that we should be looking forward to before we wrap up today? As someone the listeners should be not hoarding for, because you really got to hoard nowadays. Like you really got to hoard.
Well, the answer is always Phasey. Phasey is
Summer
brilliant
Nina Daisy is the next Cecil.
Well,
in pretty much
well,
every
judging
way.
by the last Cecil, he has not been as important as people have said. So you'll probably be fine without Phasey, just as I've been fine without Paladin Cecil.
You haven't been fine. You're in denial.
Just have fun of dealing with preemptives that you don't
how
have
would you
covered.
I
like
have
it?
him now.
How would you like it if Cecil had an on-demand AoE imbue? And what are some of the other things that Phasey does that Cecil doesn't? I'm trying to think.
Cecil
don't
does
care.
have an imbue, though.
Imperial to go
AoE.
with it. Full uptime on 70% magic mix for the
AoE
entire
AK
team.
barrier.
Jesus.
I just wish she wasn't.
The
I
unit's
just wish she
broken.
wasn't a fan service unit. Like, tell me why.
Okay. Hold
Yeah.
on. I actually have a question here.
75%
Okay, so-
breaks. 75% breaks.
Yeah, okay, listen. Okay, so this is going too far. Question is this the easy mode of the game? Okay, is Phasey going to be the easy mode of the game going forward, or is Phasey going to be kind of the requirement? Because I really hope she's not going to be the requirement. And if she's going to be the easy mode, or if they are going to be the easy mode, then I just want to skip them. Because 8k barriers, Jesus, are you even going to die?
That's a grandest ability, to be fair.
Okay,
I think Phasey makes things from reasonable, turns them from a massive pain in the ass to reasonable, from what I've seen. Stuff like White Dragon EX's preemptive is like you have to guts or gear 300% resist on everyone for it.
Nice.
Unless you have her covering it.
Yeah, but I mean, there are ways around it. It's not that bad to just use a couple of guts.
There are ways around it, but it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
So yes, you can do... Phasey is not required, but she makes things a lot easier, and I wouldn't say things were, like, trivial with her, from
Also,
what
her
I've seen.
We
vision
really
card's
need
good.
that Envy Gabranth, or not Gabranth, Zargabath. We really need him to come in and be a tank.
No, it's NVA White Knight Noel
I,
for Christmas.
I would like NVA Zargabath to be a tank. I do not think that Gumi loves us enough to give us 2 non-DPS enemy units in one. I think for any unit that's not a damage dealer in their base form, they're always going to be a damage dealer in their Brave Shift.
Maybe.
I wish
We'll
I
see
were wrong.
how
but
creative they can be.
Yeah, you've never been wrong before, Muspel.
Hey,
Never.
Schwan might brave shift into a physical tank.
Oh. Well,
Anyway, I think we're a bit burnt out.
yes. I was trying to make a funny joke about Muspel being wrong all the time, but it's just not in me right now.
What is not in you?
Nope.
Nope. All right, see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys. Bye.